How does the sun work? Well, there's two issues we got to look at as far as the sun is concerned. The first one is gravity, because we have, all these planets rolling around the sun. Why? Why are we so faithful to our sun? Why don't we, take our leave and go out of the solar system, fly around the universe? I'd love to, with our whole planet, going throughout the universe. Wouldn't you like that? But the sun doesn't let us. Somehow we're bound to the sun. How? By what mechanism are we bound to the sun? Even worse, the sun is bound to the center of the Milky Way. In fact, in a plane, like almost all galaxies are flat. And the question is why? The galaxy spins, there's a star there, and it doesn't leave. Even the ones on the outside, they don't fly away. It's like, like the quantum atom. You have this little electron bead rolling around the nucleus, and you ask, well, why doesn't it fall to the nucleus? I mean, gravity, or positive nucleus attracting negative electrons should be attracting, right? And then if not, why doesn't the electron leave? Why does it keep going back and forth, between energy levels? Why don't the electrons just fly away? So these are important questions. In fact, the one falling towards the center of the nucleus was the one that got us started at the beginning of the 20th century. That's what they were investigating. Why? Because they had this other atom that, what's his name? Can't remember the guy's name now. But anyways, they had a different plum pudding model, and they said, well, that one doesn't explain why the electron doesn't fall. Okay, and so they went in there, did some tests, and you got all the way to Niels Bohr, and he said, oh, I've got to solve it. It's a planetary model. You have the electron going around. And no, that don't work either. Okay, you have to explain why the electron doesn't fall to the nucleus or why it doesn't spontaneously leave the atom. If you cannot explain that, you don't have a model of the atom. And that's what we have today, because that's what the planetary model is what they use to explain ionization, quantum jump, electricity. All that's explained with the quantum model, with this planetary model. Okay, so that's where we stand. Okay, so here we have our Milky Way. Okay, here we have them. Okay, and one of those is our star. And the question is why, if that thing is turning around, why doesn't it spit out our sun or any of the stars right there at the periphery? Here you have a spiral galaxy, okay, more or less the same thing. You ask the same question, well, if all those stars are going around, why don't they fly away? What's keeping them tied to the center? I mean, we're talking about a star. A star like a sun is gigantic, many times the size of our Earth, millions of times, and yet it doesn't. It's alone. It's just another star like all the others there, and yet they all orbit a center for no reason whatsoever. Why don't they fly away? And you can't say, well, it's gravity, it's mass, because those are concepts. Again, you cannot explain a mechanism with concepts, which is what they do. They say it's mass, it's gravity. That's not a mechanism. That's a mathematical concept. And what they want to do is replace physics with mathematics and say, well, it's mass. If you have so much mass, then, the star doesn't fly away. But see, that's only a description, a mathematical description. That doesn't give you a physical mechanism. Physical mechanism is, I tie a rope around a donkey and I pull. And someone asks, or I ask, how did I get the donkey to come closer to me? So, very easy. You tied a rope and I saw you pull on the rope that was tied to the neck of the donkey, and I can see and visualize and I can explain to anyone how the donkey approached you. How do you do that with stars? Is a star being held together by some kind of rope towards the center? The planets, here you have the planets, okay? Here's our planet. This is the solar system. Okay, you have all the planets rolling around the Earth, around the sun. How come they don't leave? How come they don't fly away? And, this is a different version here. Some people say, no, this is the way they turn around, okay? No problem. Okay, you want it that way because the sun is rolling around the Milky Way, no problem. Tell me why they keep rolling around the sun. You can see that they're not flying away. It's like they're tied to the sun. It's like they're tethered to the sun, okay? And so here's the question for you, the million-dollar question you got to think today about when you look at how the sun does its thing in the solar system. Is this what's happening? Is it like here we have, okay? Is this what's happening? You've got maybe somehow the Earth is tethered to the sun is tethered to the center of the Milky Way. Is that what's happening? Okay, so this is one of the things you got to keep in mind, right? Maybe we're bound, we're tied, as we say with a rope model, that we're all tied together, whether we like it or not, we're bound to each other, okay? Here's another version of that, just in case, similar. Okay, you have the cowboy rolling his lasso. Is this what's happening? Okay, so these are the things for you to keep in mind today as we go along. Okay, so how did our solar system start according to the establishment? Okay, well, it started with what is called a nebular hypothesis. They say there was a nebula, a bunch of gases and stones and other debris that came out of an explosion of another star system a long time ago, some kind of supernova. Said, throw all this garbage into our neighborhood. So we have all these gases, right? Hydrogen, perhaps helium, and you have all this debris, and all this slowly condensed and kind of got together. And here you have a picture of it, okay? This is just a synthesis. You see the nebula there on the upper left, and as you go to the lower right, you can see what's happening. The gas cloud condenses and creates these orbits, and in each orbit you have all these gases and debris that eventually condensed into a star. Okay, this is the official version, and here let me show you the how they visualize it, more or less like this. Okay, especially our Earth, one of these little things, gas clouds and debris turns into our Earth. Okay, so this is the official version. Okay, you have the sun, which was which is condensed gas essentially, right? And some gases remained outside. Okay, and they turned into these planets such as the Earth, the rocky planets. And here's a version of how they think it happened. Okay, this is called the Iron Catastrophe. Let me get this one out of here. Okay, you can see it there. And what it is essentially they have all this debris hit something there. They accumulate together with gases, I guess, and the Earth comes out. And we say, this is poppycock, this is nonsense, this never happened, okay? Now, we make a distinction between the sun and the planets, especially the rocky planets, Mercury, Venus, all the way to Mars, and the moons of each one of the planets, okay? Because you got a problem. If, as they say, there was this ring of gas and debris, why did we have a planet like like Jupiter or Saturn, which are gaseous planets, which are stars that weren't big enough to ignite, and they're surrounded by rocky moons that go around them. Io, Europa, Ganymede. They go around Jupiter, and these are rocky planets that are in the same ring as the gas that supposedly formed part of the nebula that made the sun. You got to explain that. How did those little moons come into being? And yeah, we have a different version here, totally different version. It's not ours, by the way. I don't take credit for it. I'm glad I discovered it because I had this question all the way from high school. Why our planet is, or why all these rocky planets are perfectly round. You could say almost perfectly, right? Round. They're spherical, except for flat earthers. And then why are they differentiated? As you go to the center of the Earth, you get to heavier elements. And as you go out, not only do you get to weaker elements, but you get all the way to gases. I mean, we're surrounded by air. Air is oxygen. Maybe there's some hydrogen and helium floating around. It's all gases that surround our planet. Same with Mars. Okay, same with Venus. Not so with Mercury. But, all these have the same structure. They're heavy in the center, lighter on the outside, all the way to gases that surround the planet. And what I'm describing is a star. Earth was a star. Okay, so Earth was a star a long time ago that condensed and turned into a planet, what is known as a black dwarf. A black dwarf. What is the problem? Well, the problem is that a black dwarf takes, at least 1 trillion years to form. And that's a little longer than the Big Bang, which happened only a petty 14 billion years ago. So you can see the problem. If there are black dwarfs, which they say they can't be any black dwarfs out there, but if the Earth is a black dwarf, you can see the problem that would create for Big Bang theory. Okay, it would knock it out of the sky, sudden death. That's what it would happen. So yeah, the big problem here is that that there are black dwarfs, and our planet is a black dwarf. What is a black dwarf? A star that served its course, ran its completely through its course, and shrunk to or compressed to a planet. And then it got rid of most of its gaseous surface, and ours stayed with, remained with some oxygen around it. Others like Mercury and Mars and Venus, they have CO2, carbon dioxide. But that's the, that's a star. That's what it is. All these are stars. And so anything that I see round in the solar system, any moon, any satellite, of Jupiter, Saturn, whatever, all those were stars. They were compressed. That's why they're round. That's why they're differentiated. And so it's got nothing to do with this nebular hypothesis that they have out there. The nebular hypothesis I do accept for the sun. Okay? But I'm saying that all those gases condensed and became the sun, which was the last member of the solar system. All the other planets were already in the stars, right? Stars, black dwarfs, they were already there. And when the sun ignited, they were already there waiting for the sun to ignite. That's the way we look at it here, okay? And so, yeah, here we say that the Earth was a star, and the problem there is with Big Bang. They tell you that something existed in frame number 2, which is a singularity. So the question is, what was there before the singularity? What was in frame number 1 of the Universal movie? And that's what they never answered. They said that's an unscientific question, and so, yeah, if God's going to turn nothing into something, I want to know what the mechanism is. I don't care if you put God in there, if you take him away, it doesn't matter. The question is, tell me how we went from number 1 to frame number 2. That's all you got to explain. And of course, they never answer that question because they can't. And so they just dismiss it as an unscientific question because they can't put an equation or measure anything there. So they say it's unscientific. That's the way they handle these questions. Okay, so that's the gravity part. Okay, how does gravity work? Why don't the planets leave the solar system? Why doesn't the sun leave the galaxy? You got to answer that question. That's part of the functioning of a star that you have to answer, gravity. Okay. Now let's go to the other part. How does the sun, a star, any star for that matter, create light? What do you call it? Energy, whatever that is. How does it produce energy? Heat, light. How does it do that? And it does it every day. Every day it doesn't burn. You try it at home. Always this experiment in the presence of a relativist, right? So that you don't get hurt. Get a match and light it and see if it lasts 1,000,000 years. No, that match only lasts a second. So we got a problem with that because, it turns off very easily. So apparently that sun is not just a ball of fire in the sense like a campfire. There's something else going on there, and we have to explain that something else. How does that work? Okay, what's the establishment's version? Well, it's fusion, okay? Here you have from Universe Today, fusion of 4 protons, hydrogen molecules, it really should be hydrogen atoms, not molecules, into 1 alpha particle. 2 protons and 2 neutrons bound together into a particle that is identical to a helium nucleus, okay? 2 positrons are released from this process, as well as 2 neutrinos, which changes 2 of the protons into neutrons and energy. What in the world is energy? What is this word energy? I have no idea. Okay, we'll find out maybe. 99% of the energy produced by the sun takes place within 24% of the sun's radius. By 30% of the radius, fusion has stopped almost entirely. So fusion only happens within the 30% inner percent of the radius, okay? Closer to 24%, where that's where 99% of the process allegedly takes place, according to the establishment. This is all done by equations, mathematically, right? That's how they came up with all these numbers. The rest of the sun is heated by the energy that is transferred from the core through the successive layers. So we're transferring energy, folks, here. You know, all these concepts that they transfer, mathematical concept, eventually reaching the solar photosphere and escaping into space as sunlight or the kinetic energy of particles. Okay, so that's the official version. Okay, and here we have a little diagram of that, I think it is. Here it is, yeah. And you can see how this is done. 2 protons fuse together, producing deuterium, hydrogen 2, and other particles plus energy. Always that energy there, you know, can't miss that, whatever that is, right? And that's the first step. The second step, deuterium, hydrogen 2, and a proton, hydrogen 1, fuse. Okay, so we have 2 and 1, right? So now we have a 3-ball entity, right, producing helium-3 and energy. And then 2 helium-3 nuclei fuse together, producing helium-4, 2 protons, hydrogen 1, and always that energy. Hey, we always have energy in there. Thank God, you know, all that energy. And then number 4, the last step is helium-3 fuses with helium-4, producing beryllium, which decays and then fuses with another proton, hydrogen, to yield 2 helium-4 nuclei plus energy. Okay, so they have, this is what they're producing, but then they produce this thing called energy, which we have no idea what it is. Okay, but what is the issue here? Which is the one I want to clarify, because the people may not be aware of this fine detail, and that's what separates the establishment from us. So I do want to harp on that a little bit if I can, so that you can see the differences between what the establishment proposes and what we propose here. Okay, and here it is. First, I got to go with this fellow. His name is Larry Krauss. Okay, let me put him on here so you can see how he's going to explain how this happens, how this process goes. Okay, and here he goes. Listen carefully. Okay, he says protons don't like to get close together. And he says then they have to come together with a huge amount of energy or velocity to get close enough to begin to fuse. Okay, so we have all of these balls that come together, but you can see what's happening. You know, hydrogen atoms slam together. Some of these collisions are so powerful that atoms fuse, releasing energy. So they're talking about collisions. In other words, they're saying that all these atoms or these particles, they travel inside the center of the sun. So there's a lot of space there, and these guys are traveling at great speeds, hitting one another. They're blending with the other, merging with the others, or slamming into them and, you know, merging somehow. And when you have several of these mergers, you create a helium atom, and plus energy always, right? Don't forget about the energy. And so this is how they explain it. They say, look, it's traveling at great speeds. You can see that they're all traveling there, okay? And this is going to be where we're going to differ with these folks, okay, in the traveling part, okay? So I'm going to just keep that. I just want to move now to this energy thingy so that we all get clear what energy is. And for that, what better source than of a Nobel Prize winner? Here we have good old Feynman, and he says, it is important to realize that in physics today, we have no knowledge of what energy is. Now, that's a scientific statement for you. We have no idea what we're talking about. Okay, great. And you look it up, energy is defined as capacity, right? And energy is also defined as the quantitative property transferred to an object. How do you transfer a quantitative property, meaning a number? What do? You throw it, or you slide it, or how do you transfer that? So these people are using mathematical concepts as physical objects, and they talk about transferring, like if you're transferring a ball or a tree or a dog to someone else. Okay, so this is the problem. That's why they have no idea what energy is. What good old Dickie there didn't understand is that energy is not a what. It's not a thing. It's not a something. It's not an object. Energy is a concept, and you cannot use a concept to explain a mechanism in physics. Period. We're done. So these people have no idea what they're talking about, and when they say they know and that they've proven and they get a Nobel Prize, for sure you can be absolutely sure they have no clue whatsoever. Okay, but that's the official version. Probably the main opposition to the official version comes from the electric universe. So let's go through their little thingy. Okay, here we have the electric universe, and I think these people are even worse than the establishment here. Okay, and this was good old Walt Thornhill, who I think died in January, and I still have him as a friend in in Facebook. But good old Walt, he says the following. He says that the sun is like an electric bulb, essentially. Okay, they have this plasma ball notion of what the sun is. And you can see that the current is coming from outside. It's coming from other stars. What he's saying is that all stars in the universe are connected more or less like a Christmas tree, like lights on a Christmas tree. And in that sense, we have no difference with him, because we agree that all atoms in the universe are connected, physically connected. Where we have a problem is he's going to connect them with electricity. He says stars are connected electrically to the galaxy. There we have a problem, okay? Because electricity is a concept. It's not a physical object. Electricity is something in motion. Anything in motion is already a dynamic concept, okay? The object is dog, not dog moving. The object is boy, not boy running. The object is eagle, not eagle flying, okay? There's no such object called eagle flying. Okay, there's no such object as fish swimming. Okay, the object is fish and the object is eagle. And likewise, you cannot say electrically, because electrically is not a thing. So you cannot connect things electrically. Okay, and this is essentially their notion. Let me show you here. Give me a second here. This is their sun, plasma ball. That's the electric universe sun. More or less, that's how they envision it. They say the electricity comes from outside, okay? And then it comes from every star in the universe. So it's electricity that binds us or connects us to every star in the universe. And I got a big problem with that, okay? I worked because these people know a lot about electricity, or they think they know because they can't define what electricity is. But they know absolutely nothing about vacuum, okay? Absolutely nothing. They don't know what vacuum is. Space out there is vacuum. It's not a perfect vacuum, okay? And I worked in the semiconductor industry for many years with -7 torr range. So you go in there and you take atmosphere, regular air that's out that you breathe out here, and you pump it down with a mechanical pump, rotary vane pump. Pump it down to the -3 level. Okay. Then it takes what takes over is either a diffusion pump or a cryo pump, and takes it down to the -7 torr level, and that's the range. You could call it high vacuum. That's what it's called, where you can operate and run the machines, introduce species such as argon, inert species that you can do things with in the semiconductor industry. What happens? At -7, you have a very high vacuum for what we know here on Earth. Space out there, empty space, especially the solar wind. Okay, they think it's electricity. The solar wind is minus 12 to minus 13 torr range. There's hardly anything per cubic meter in other words, per cubic meter, there's hardly any matter at all in that block. In other words, the solar wind is almost empty completely. There's nothing. You can't run an electrical current with a solar wind, or on the moon, which is also in the minus 11, minus 12 range, torr, minus 11, minus 12 torr range. So you have very high vacuum. There's nothing there, to run a current. And people don't understand that. You can't run a current with zero in the vacuum. You need to put atoms in there. What is it according to the establishment, right? According to what they teach you in high school and college. What is electricity? It's the flow of electrons, from atom to atom. You need atoms. What we don't have in space is atoms. There's no atoms there to take the little electron bead from atom to atom. That's if you follow the establishment's version. Of course, that's not our version. But if you follow the establishment version, which is what the electric universe uses, the planetary model, we'll do it with hydrogen for simplicity's sake. You have a proton or a nucleus, and you have an electron bead. What is electricity according to the electric universe? A little bead goes from atom to atom to atom. That's what it is, the flow of atoms. You need the flow of electrons, You need the atoms. Without the atoms, what is the electron bead flowing through or across? This is the problem. These people want to do electricity without atoms. And otherwise, they're saying that the whole universe, space, is covered with atoms, which is not true, because then we would have a true sandbox. And then you're talking about the real ether there, a sandbox, okay? That's not the case. Okay, so this is according to the electric universe. This is electricity, okay? This is according to the electric universe, okay? It says, what is the electric universe? The electric universe adds the essential role of charged particles in motion. What are you talking about? Charged particles in motion. I don't know what charged means. Does it carry a Visa or a MasterCard? I'm not sure, but they say charged particles. What particles are they talking about? They're talking about electrons. Charged particles fill all of space as electrically conductive plasma. This is absolute nonsense. Charged particles do not fill space, okay? Because otherwise we'd have a sandbox, but these people don't understand that. So the sun is plasma, stars are plasma, galaxies are plasma. Absolutely not. Okay, plasma is ionized gas. That's what it is. Okay, and so they don't understand really what plasma is, let alone electricity. The filaments of magnetized and radiating matter between stars and between galaxies are plasma. So they think the whole universe is filled with what? Particles, charged particles, and that the whole universe is vibrating with plasma. Not only the stars, but everything between the stars. So we have, I guess these people never took a look at space out there. The black stuff between the Earth and the moon, that black stuff they're saying is full of plasma. That's what they're saying. Okay, the isolated islands we once imagined in space do not exist. A web of electromagnetism connects planets. No, electromagnetism is a concept. You got to tell me what physical object connects planets, stars, moons, whatever, galaxies. And they do not mention the object. They say electromagnetism. Electromagnetism is a concept. You cannot use a concept to bind anything, to connect anything. The movement of charged particles is an electric current. Okay, so they're saying that between the stars, everything that's connected, right, what they have is just current. They have the movement of electrons. So how does the movement of electrons bind the Earth to something else? How does it connect it? Connect means that, there's a continuous, unbroken entity between two stars. That's not the case here. They're saying there's a flow, there's a river flowing from one star to another. Okay? And they say these currents give rise to pervasive magnetic fields and high energy, etc. Again, they use the same language as the establishment: energy, particles, flow, electricity. And that's why they cannot explain anything. That's why the electric universe has no future whatsoever, because they're using the same language as the establishment. And that's where the problem is, in the language. You know, semantics, word salad, that's where the problem is. These people don't do word salad, and that's why they cannot explain anything. They have to do word salad. You need to establish the foundations of your theory. Okay, they don't do that. Okay, so this is a circuit according to them, flow of electron beads, I guess, right? According to the electric universe, right? This is what it is. So you have two plates, an anode and a cathode, and you have all these atoms between them, because you need atoms. And what they say is the electron bead is flowing from one plate to the other. Okay, that's electricity for them. The flow of electron beads from atom to atom. That's the notion they have of electricity. And even if this were true, which it ain't, okay, even if this were true, you would need atoms. And yeah, the only way they can explain their theory is by filling the universe, space, you know, every bit of space with atoms. Okay, because you have to have one atom very close to another one for the bead to be able to displace, you know, the bead of the other atom, or one leaves the hole and the other one fills it, or whatever, however they want to explain it. So this is the notion these people have of electricity. And with this so-called electricity, which they turn into a physical object, they turn the flowing water into a river, a continuous river, and they say, oh, the river connects, you know, the mountain to the sea. No, it doesn't connect it, because the river is made of all these little particles when you look at it very closely. So they're all separated, right? It's not like you can pull on the river and pull the ocean to the mountain. You can't do that, okay? Because what? It's made out of all these discrete particles, pieces, okay? And that's the case here. If you're going to have for example, if you're going to have the Earth being drawn to the sun by gravity, and they say, no, it's not gravity, it's electricity. Great. Okay, so it's electricity. How do you pull with electricity? And at that point, they say, well, positive attracts negative. They start using the same language as the mathematical establishment. That's the only way they can explain it. They say, look, positive attracts negative. Okay? And yeah, Mother Nature doesn't understand what positive and negative are. She understands maybe clockwise and counterclockwise, but not positive and negative. She never went to school. Okay? Mother Nature knows nothing about math. Okay, so these are the cosmic filaments. This is the way the electric universe visualizes the universe. You know, they say everything is connected by these filaments. And what are those filaments? Those are currents. Those are electrical currents, or electricity, or however you want to call it. Okay, and you can see that you cannot hold the universe together with flowing beads. Okay, and you would have to have atoms fill every bit of space, which is also not the case. Space is minus 11, minus 12 toward level. Here in our neighborhood, it's been calculated or hypothesized that interstellar space is minus 16, and then when you get out to intergalactic, you get to the minus 19 toward level. That's more or less the calculations. This is speculation. But to say that the entire universe is filled with plasma, absolutely not. These people have no idea what vacuum is. They should study vacuum, not electricity. And this is where they fail. Okay, so here we have we'll concede their electricity. Let's go with this. Okay, we have two stars here. They look like our sun, right? And they say electricity is flowing. You can see the electricity through all these electron beads going in one direction and the other, you know. And so the question here is, how do you bind these things? And do the electron beads flow without atoms? Is this how this works, how the universe works? And I'm just showing you here two stars. If there are stars in every direction, radial direction, from our star, from our sun, the whole universe is filled with atoms. Space is not empty. Space is filled. It's the other way around. Space is a sandbox, according to these people. And so, and for some reason, it's activated. It's all plasma. And so, yeah, we have a lot of problem with what the electric universe is proposing, which I think is worse than what the establishment is proposing. And the only part that they got right is that stars connects them. That's what you have to identify. That was the key issue. How are they connected? They cannot be connected by electromagnetism. They cannot be connected by electricity, by the flow of beads. There's no atoms out there in space. So what connects, the stars? What connects the planets to our sun? Okay? And that's what they've never identified. On the other hand, the establishment, I think they got it right as far as fusion is concerned. That's how I think it works inside the sun. The problem I've got with what they propose is that inside the sun, because remember, it's all gravitational, according to them and according to me. We all agree on this. It's gravitational. The sun is compressing itself day after day after day after day, and after millions of years, it becomes more or less a cinder at some point. But what happens when you're compressing atom against atom against atom inside the sun? You're talking about, you're talking about gases. Let's assume for a second that the sun is all hydrogen, okay? And it's going to turn some of that hydrogen into helium. We're talking about a brand new star here, right? So it's compressing. It's compressing gravitationally. If you go inside the sun, if you could go to the center of the sun, the main center, do you think you would have a lot of space to move around and fly and collide against other atoms? I think not. I think you would be squashed in there. You're atom against atom. You have all this from every side. Remember, this is a sphere, for those who are not flat earthers. And it's compressing from every side, right? Compressing, and it squashes one atom against another. And so, yes, this is where we have a problem with them. And so, this is what the electric universe proposes. Says, they have this flow of rocks, and how do you interact with that? How do you connect something with that? And so here we have my good old friend Casimir, and he's putting on the donkey by throwing rocks at him. And here's our cowboy, and he does something similar. He does it with waves. He throws these waves one way, and for some reason, the donkey is attracted towards him. So they have all these mechanisms that they want to do with particles, and it don't work. It simply don't work. So these people are really out of their league when they try to use their brains. Okay? That's what the problem is. Okay, so here we have our version. Okay, what happens inside the sun? Well, there's a lot of compression going on. There's still maybe some vibration in there. The atoms, they tend to vibrate and move around, but they have very, very little room. Maybe they don't move much at all. But they're being compressed from every side, and now we can see why, 4 hydrogen atoms are compressed into a helium atom. Okay, we can see that. Okay, and so here I try to illustrate it. This is what we would see inside the center of the sun. Maybe some slight vibration there. I had to put that in there just to give you an idea that there could be some movement in there, even though they're being compressed against each other. And what happens? As they're compressed by gravity, you have this situation where they're compressed from the outside and squashed against each other. Okay, so I think there's very little movement in the center of the sun. What you really have is compression of atom against atom, and that's where you have hydrogen being turned into helium and later on into heavier elements. Okay, so that's in general terms what we propose. Okay, so the difference with the establishment, we agree with fusion. There is a fusion going on there due to gravity, but there's no movement. It's not that one collides at great speeds against another, which is what they do in the accelerators. That's where they got the idea. They say, oh, these atoms, these electrons, or these protons, whatever they want to use in there, they're running at great speeds and colliding at great speeds like 2 cars crashing against each other. We say that's not what happens. What happens is you have something from the outside squashing the 2 cars together and turning them into one, more or less, metal, scrap metal. Okay, so that's what we think was happening. So here you have just a vision of that. Okay, you have here our 2 atoms, which are membranes that encapsulate a proton star. Remember, the ropes end at the electron shell. The red one, in this case, we color-coded it so that you can distinguish it. The red one turns into the electron shell. It weaves a surface, which is the surface of the atom, in this case the hydrogen atom. And the other one continues straight towards the center and comes out the other end, or somewhere on the other end, and forms these proton stars. So we have an electron membrane, not an electron bead, rolling around a nucleus, but an electron membrane that encapsulates the proton star. This is our atom. And when they're squashed together, you can see what happens. The electron membranes merge. Okay, they blend into each other. Okay, here we have 4 of them. So this is more or less what we propose happens when 4 hydrogen atoms turn into a helium atom. And obviously there are other processes. This is a very simplified version of what we propose, but you can see what we're proposing. Essentially, we're squashing 4 hydrogen atoms to make 1 helium atom. And what comes out of there is what they call energy. And we have to figure out what this energy thingy is. Is there such a thing called energy? Well, first let me show you the helium atom. When you have those 4 squashed together, you get something that looks more or less like this, a ball. Okay, it's the S1 and S2 level. And essentially it's a sphere. That's what you get. And the question is, why do they, because this is from the establishment, this is from chemistry, and you can see that they show these 2 little electron beads. Why do they put a sphere? What is that sphere? And that sphere is supposedly an energy level or an orbital, that's what they call it. But they don't think of it as a physical membrane. They think of it as a region where you can find, or within which you can find the electron bead. That's why they put those beads in there. And we're saying there are no beads. What you have is a membrane. That's all you have, okay, for the helium atom, as well as for the hydrogen atom. Okay, so what is this energy stuff? Because if you merge these, you can see that a helium atom doesn't weigh as much, doesn't have as much mass as 4 hydrogen atoms. So what happened to the rest of it? Where did all the mass go? And they said it turned into energy. You know, E equals mc squared. Okay, so it turned into energy. What is this energy? Okay, well, that's the heat and the light that comes out of the sun. Where does it go? Or how does it go? How does it get out of there? Okay, it gets out through the same mechanism that we have for gravity. Okay, what is gravity? So let's look at gravity. Here it is, gravity. Gravity means that, or why the Earth doesn't fly out of the solar system, every atom of the Earth is bound, physically bound to every atom of the sun. They're bound to it through the ropes that we just showed a minute ago. And what you have is torsions along each one of those ropes is what we call light. Okay, and so we have light and gravity in a single mechanism known as the grand unified theory, okay, where we have the 2 mechanisms in one. And yeah, what the sun does is once it squashes the 4 hydrogen atoms into a helium atom, it releases along the ropes connecting every one of those atoms to whatever is out there in the universe, it releases the so-called energy, which is the torsions propagating along each one of the ropes that connects any 2 atoms in the universe. Okay, so that is our model. Okay, you can see it's a little different than what the establishment proposes. We're saying there's a single thread in the entire universe. This thread is what binds around itself, twines around itself, creates all the atoms in the universe, and each atom is bound to any other atom through the same pair of threads, okay, that are twined around each other. And light consists of torsions along that rope, and at the same time, that rope serves as the mechanism for gravity. Now we have not action at a distance. It's just that we can't see or touch the mediators. So if we have, for example, where is it? Here. We have a little spoon, okay? And we say, why does it fall to the floor, right? We let go of it and it comes down. Okay, it never falls to the ceiling. I don't know why, but it always falls downward. Why? Because it's attracted. In other words, it's not attracted. What happens is as the spoon gets closer and closer to the earth, the ropes fan out. because the atoms are getting closer. That's why it's a distance phenomenon, square of the distance phenomenon. But as the spoon gets closer, as the atoms get closer to the atoms of the earth, the ropes that bind each one of those atoms to every atom on earth, they fan out, fan out, fan out more, and that's why you have this acceleration of gravity. So in a single mechanism, the rope, you have light and you have gravity. That's something that mathematicians will never discover, even if they come to this channel.